Hello everyone and welcome. I'm your host, Charles Lung. With me as always my co-host, editor, producer, co-pilot, gunner, navigator, orator, and podcasting associate, Jacob Cloth. And we are here to pitch you a brand new televisual series for you all to imagine and enjoy. And what is that show called, Jake? Give us a title.
So it's called Creatura.
Creatura.
Gotta capture them all, or gotta trap them all, sorry.
Oh, gotta trap them all. Yeah.
It's a Pokemon parody.
Okay.
I told you last week, if you remember, I was gonna do a kid show about some sort of toy product that we could sell.
Yes.
And to prep for that, I started watching Pokemon.
Okay.
The first episodes of Pokemon to try to get like an idea of how you do it right. Mm-hmm. And I was like, I just couldn't help it. I was like, I just got to do a parody. I mean, it's too obvious. It's too clear,
Yeah.
I just have to do it.
Pokemon is a very specific brand, and it is very easy to make fun of. Because it's basically dogfighting, and that is the least interesting observation anyone has ever made about Pokemon.
And it's easy, and also I gotta be honest, it was a little hard to come up with a toy idea to mix with a show for a kid show. I mean, all the good ones are taken. They got Yu-Gi-Oh. They got what's the spinning top one? I don't know what it's called.
What's it called? Beyblades.
Beyblades.
Yeah.
There we go. Pokemon obviously is taken. It's difficult. All these ideas. So
You're
the parody obviously is a bit easier because I can just make fun of it.
And if it's a successful enough parody, we can begin to sell the toys.
Exactly. I already have a toy idea.
There you go.
I'm very excited for it, actually. We'll get to it.
Good.
So our main character, our protagonist, the kid that we're going to be following throughout this show, his name is Stash Mustard.
Yeah.
Yep. Stash
right.
Mustard.
Nice.
He's a 10-year-old kid who wants to trap all the Creatura in the world and keep them in his house. He's extremely ambitious and super reckless.
Okay. And
Next
I have a question already.
Yeah.
Is this like a well-known hobby, or is he just wanting to capture every animal on the planet and like keep them in his house, like some sort of fucked up Noah's Ark situation?
A lot of people like to fight Creatura in this universe, like to have battles.
Yeah.
That's a thing. Trapping them all in his house is a little weird and is considered weird by everyone else. Like usually everyone only has like one or two. This kid wants all of them in the world and to put him in his house.
Right in his house.
Kind of like a bug kid, That's kind of
one of those kids, one of those freaks.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So Block Heatherston is the second character. He's kind of like Matthew McConaughey's person in Dazed and Confused. He's always smoking.
He's always high. He's almost a pedophile.
He's like, Matthew McConaughey's guy, I don't remember how old he was supposed to be in Dazed and Confused, but he seemed like
32.
he was like late 20s.
He was supposed to be like 32.
Okay. Well, this guy is going to be like, he's like, early 20s, but he's hanging out with much younger kids. But he's not like after him, like Matthew McConaughey is. This guy's not a pedophile, but, we might hint at it a little bit because this is a parody.
Yeah, that's fine. You're allowed to be dark and edgy.
He's always trying to get with girls. He should have a real job by now. That's very much implied. Like Creatura is very much something for kids. Mm-hmm. And he's
like Lego.
He's way too old for it.
Yeah.
And all of his Creatura are weirdly feminine. And like kind of look like this one person, this other character named Nancy Hart, Officer Nancy Hart, actually.
Oh, no.
Is a 26-something police officer in charge of the town and seemingly every town they ever visit.
Okay.
So whenever they get to a new town or a city, it's always the same girl that's in charge of it. Mm-hmm. And they make jokes about it. They're like, are you in charge of this town too? She's like, yes, I just got promoted. I'm in charge of this town now. Like, seemingly always she's the only cop you ever see in this world.
Okay, good. I like this.
She's overly serious about everything, and Block is madly in love with her.
Who wouldn't be? I love an overly serious woman.
She's also just wants to solve every problem with a gun. That's something that's lacking in the Pokemon universe, obviously.
I agree.
Need more guns.
More like poachers in the Pokemon universe.
There's certain we will be people who just they're like, we'll see in the background like somebody lost their fight and they just like put down their fucking Creatura.
Oh no, that's hilarious.
Brutal shit like that. But like, it won't be like perfectly on screen. Like, it'll be in the background or implied.
Oh, of course, of course. We'll imply
so.
that there's like dentists and like well-off people who go to safari and just kill endangered creaturos, and then pose with them, and then leave them to rot in the field. That's something also.
Yep. So we already have Stash, Mustard, and Block Heatherston, the main part of our trio, but we've got one more other person in our trio. Her name is May Steen. May is a 14-year-old girl, super talkative and very annoying, like kind of the person that's always talking, always saying something.
Okay.
And she's always making fun of Stash and Block. She's Block's cousin, and that's kind of why she's like strung along with them. Why Block is hanging out with a 10-year-old kid named Stash, we'll get into that in the first episode.
It's very strange.
Don't you hang out with 10-year-old kids all the time, Charlie?
I do not, and I want everyone to know that I don't. Who's listening to this, and anyone who's not listening to this, at least not on any official channels.
Next we have Nurse Happy. Nurse Happy is a deranged, needle-phobic Creatura specialist. She's in every town and is a little bit too happy about treating Creatura. She's a little psychotic about it. Always seems to want to, seems like she wants to kill them, wants to chop off their limbs and replace them with other Creatura limbs. Like, she's always suggesting crazy treatments to fix things. And every time they bring their Creatura in to her, she's always, her first thought is like, okay, well, I guess we'll have to amputate, or we're going to have to put him down, or, like, it's always the most drastic solution first. And then they're like, no, like, we want to save him. It's like, oh, you want to keep this thing? I mean, I guess I could try to do my best.
Yes. Yeah, okay.
Now we've got another trio, very much the Team Rocket parody of our original trio here. We have Jet. Jet is a reluctant supervillain who's been dragged into this life by his wife, who he constantly complains about in snarky comments. And Jet is also constantly trying to kill himself because he hates his wife. We have Rose, his wife. She's the evil super leader who's in charge of their little group, and she wants to trap all Creatura. Now the joke here is that the villain is evil because she wants to capture all the Creatura and put them in one place. But our hero also wants to do that.
He wants to do the exact same thing. He wants to capture them all and keep them in his basement.
Gotta trap them all. That's our slogan. Not similar to anything else.
No, what? That's crazy.
And lastly, we have Bart. Bart is the overly pampered bulldog-like Creatura of Rose and Jet. He has clothes on and he can speak, and what's a little fucked up is that he's named after Rose and Jet's dead kid. And Rose very much treats him like he is her kid.
That's
and he's
so
still alive.
sad. I love that.
And we will reveal later on that they never had a kid.
It's a lie.
This is just all a lie in her head because she's a psychopath.
And that her and Bart aren't even married. They're just like, he's just like tries to get away. Jet aren't even married. He's just trying constantly to escape, and she won't let him.
Yeah, maybe she's a little older than him, and it's kind of implied that she might have kidnapped him.
Yeah. Okay, I like that.
But never explicitly said.
No. Nothing is ever explicitly said, but we just see a picture of somebody who looked like Jet, like a kid version of Jet on milk cartons, just in the back of somebody's fridge one day. Or, we'll walk by a newspaper stand and you'll see a newspaper, like, grieving mother finally admits that after 20 years her missing son will not be returned to her, or whatever,
Yeah. And like a photo that very much looks like a younger him.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so the first episode, the pilot. Stash Mustard is unable to sleep from all the excitement because tomorrow is the day that he finally gets his first Creatura. He turned 10 years old. That's the age that you're finally responsible enough to have a Creatura. He's saved up for the last few years to afford one. And he's, all excited. He had like a job at like a pool or something lame, and he's finally got enough money to afford a Creatura. He's all excited. He can't sleep. He's so excited. And in the morning, he rushes to the training center in a panic because he overslept. Because he's so excited that he didn't get any sleep. But then, obviously when he finally did fall asleep, he slept for too long.
Of course.
So in the morning he rushes over, and that's where he gets to Dr. Birch. Dr. Birch, he gets there as all the kids are leaving. He gets up to Dr. Birch, and he's like, I'm here, like, what do you have for me? I'll take whatever you got. And he's like, we're out. There's none left. You'll have to come back next year.
Next
Super
year.
depressed.
Oh my god. Yeah.
Stash. Then we have a really sad, like sad music's playing, like what's that? Like
the Incredible
Charlie
Hulk
Brown.
theme.
Like Charlie Brown sad music's playing, like
yeah.
Oh, he's walking around town all depressed because he's not going to get his Creatura.
Yeah, I have an idea for Dr. Birch, right?
Yeah.
Just so you know that Dr. Oak is a character in Pokemon. You might not know that, but he is.
Professor Oak, actually.
Professor Oak, sorry. And he is, like, one of the fan theories is that he gives Ash the Pokemon so that Ash will go on his adventures and Professor Oak can,
we'll
bang
get
his
there
mom.
in a little bit,
all right,
Charlie.
good.
We'll get there in a little bit.
Okay. I was just going to say maybe he was hitting on the moms.
I knew exactly where you were going with
when
that.
he ran up, and then he was like, they're gone. Go away. Hey, sweetheart, how you doing?
Well, no, we'll get there. We'll get there. You'll see.
Okay,
so Dr. Birch tells him, they're all at a Creatura. Stash Mustard. He's going around town all sad, watching other kids get to battle their Creatura in extremely violent, visceral battles. Like, this is not like Pokemon where they're like, like sort of hitting each other and there's like a little like, sketch marks for bruises.
Yeah,
but
and
like in this, it is violent. There's blood. This is like Quentin Tarantino. Like, these animals are getting like fucked up. Like,
yes,
this is
okay.
Crazy. And like the kids are just cheering. It's kind of mad watching this.
I would love it particularly. I'm assuming this is animated, but I would love it if we, like, everything else is, like, regular drawn, but we rotoscoped, like, police dogs, like, attacking, attacking things and, like, ripping things in half, and that's what we used as the Creatura designs.
Just something way more, like, CGI'd or something, so
yeah,
it's
exactly.
really real and
really
crazy.
real and horrifying. It's just, like, a dog killing a chicken, and then we just, like, paint some, like, goofy spikes on one of them, and they're like, it's for kids.
It's for kids, yeah. Kids, they're all cheering. They love it. So after watching a particularly violent battle, and he sees, he ends up seeing a Creatura left in a pool to drown, and he grabs it. He's like, the kid, like, he doesn't see who the owner is, and he just sees this Creatura drowning in a pool, so he saves it. He saves it. Stash grabs it, gets out. He brings it to Nurse Happy. That's where we start getting the jokes where she's like, all right, and she pulls out like an axe to chop its head off. He's like, no, like, don't. She's like, oh, you don't want me to put it out of its misery? Okay. Guess I could see what I can do. And using all of his monies that he saved up for the last few summers that he was originally going to buy a Creatura with, he uses it to heal this Creatura. All excited, he goes to his first battle in the festival. In the background as he's going in, we're going to see Block hitting on Nancy Hart.
Yeah.
This is our first introduction of Block. But Stash he enters this battle festival, and he throws out his Creatura and is quickly disqualified because his Creatura is a water creature. It's a fish.
Oh shit!
And they're like, you can't fight on land. And that's when May Steam comes over yelling that it's hers, and he's like, he stole it from me. That's my, I had him in the pool hanging out, and this kid came up and stole it, and now he's stolen my Creatura, and then then he's sort of realizing that he got screwed over by that nurse too, who just took his money and didn't do shit.
Yeah.
And it's we cut back to a flashback of that scene that we saw earlier, and in this now we see like what actually happened as opposed to sort of Stash's sort of version of the story of the way he thought it was happening in his head. It's very clear that this girl puts this fish in the water, and he comes over and grabs it and runs away, screaming about how it needs to be saved. And she tries to run after him, but he's going too fast, and she moves him.
Yeah.
And so he goes home all sad because he lost his Creatura that he thought he had, and he gets home and it's dark and he hears people giggling, and he goes in the kitchen to see a Creatura block. So instead of balls, they're blocks.
Okay.
Cubes
They're big. They're cubes. Are they like hand-sized cubes, or is it like a cinder block that kids just have to lug around?
It's just I was gonna say a hand-sized cube.
Okay.
So we can do it. I just made a mistake, though. It's not a block star. He just sees a sack, and it says, like, Creatura on it. And he's like, oh, my God, it's a Creatura. And then he opens the sack and pulls it out, and there's a Creatura, except it kind of just looks like a rock. And that's when Dr. Birch comes out of his mom's bedroom, and he's kind of like, oh, like, this is awkward. Like, he's trying to explain, what's happening, but Stash Mustard jumps into an explanation. He's like, oh, so, like, you came here, you were hiding in my mom's bedroom to surprise me, and this is my Creatura. Oh, this is so great. I mean, I couldn't understand another reason why you would have been hiding in my mom's bedroom, so this must be my Creatura that you've brought in the sack, clearly marked Creatura. And he's like, yeah, this is your Creatura. It's a rock. Or like and he's like a rock. No, like a rock, like the country, IRAQ, a rock. Yeah, that's what it is. It's a rock. And it's kind of like he Stash likes that, and he runs out with this very clearly just a rock.
Yeah.
And Stash's mom comes out of the bedroom, and she's like, was that actually a Creatura? He's like, nah, I don't know. I was just doing some geology work, and I found a rock, and I thought it looked cool, so I was bringing it home, and I stopped by your place, and well, now he's got it. He's got the rock.
He's got the rock.
So it's a rock named Iraq.
Iraq. That's good. I like that.
That's his Creatura. I can already imagine the Iraq plushies as well. Very
of
excited.
course.
That's the toy that I was thinking of. We have Iraq, like stuffed animals. That's just a rock.
And then maybe we sell like at a premium. We sell the premium Iraq plushies, and they're just actual rocks.
We just sell rocks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There you go. But it's like $24.99 for the the real high quality collectible ones, which are actual rocks.
Which is just a rock. Okay. So that was episode 1. That's our intro to this series.
Yeah. Episode
2 is the only episode I have planned out, but the other ones I have a couple other ideas as well.
Yeah, of course.
Some plot lines. So it's the morning. He's finally gonna set off on his Creatura journey. Gotta trap them all. That's his goal in life. His mom and Dr. Birch sort of lazily say goodbye in the morning. They don't really realize what he's doing. They don't realize that he's actually leaving, that they're 10. His mom doesn't realize that her 10-year-old son is just about to like fucking run off on his own into the world.
Yeah.
By the way, I forgot to mention, this is set in Middle America, in like fucking Kansas.
Yeah.
But the landscape of the world and everything is way too like fantasy oriented. Like there's massive mountains and cliffs and all this shit. But it's very clear the whole time that they're like, we are in Kansas. Like this is what Kansas looks like.
Maybe they can
Kansas
go to Minnesota
has
in
these
one
wonderful
episode.
Mountains
and it's just like actual Minnesota. And they're like,
Nah, this isn't as pretty as Kansas.
Yeah, Kansas is way nicer than this.
Gotta go back to Kansas.
And we'll have like a funny gag. Well, there'll be like the line, obvious classic like Looney Tunes style. Here's the line. This is Kansas, and here's Minnesota. And it's like a really harsh line that's the state line. They just jump back and forth over one to the other. One's really dreary and sad and very realistic, and the other one's all fantasy and nice. And there's gumdrop trees.
Well, that might work better if Minnesota and Kansas shared a border, but...
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what shares a border with Kansas. Come up with something.
I was wondering why you picked Minnesota.
It was a state. I'm Googling it.
We could do Nebraska.
Yeah, Nebraska.
Nebraska would be good. Nebraska just looks like normal Nebraska. Oklahoma also works.
Oklahoma.
Colorado is there, but Colorado actually looks kind of nice. But I guess around the board with Kansas, it's really flat.
Yeah,
so.
Missouri.
So yeah, not Minnesota.
Not Minnesota. It's in a different part of the country.
You picked
I don't know where Minnesota is.
You gotta go back to geography.
I never learned United States geography.
Really?
No.
I think I learned it several times.
Not once. We skipped that part.
One of the times that I think I learned it was at the same school as you. Anyway,
I know. It was weird to me that they never taught it to me, but they never did.
Well, that's...
And now I don't live there anymore, so no one's gonna teach me shit.
Well, they might.
Bang.
How do you feel when people ask you, like, geography questions about the U.S. when you live in a foreign country and you
I
can't answer.
I lie all of them.
You do?
I lie
Okay.
to all of them all the time. It's great.
That's good. That works.
I've told so many lies about, like, where things are. I told somebody that Canada was below America, and they fucking believed me. It was great.
That's not true. You're a
That
liar.
is true.
Okay.
Alright.
Second episode, Stash leaves for his Creatura journey because he wants to trap all creatures and win Battle Bonanza, which is a countrywide vicious Creatura cage fight. So Stash, not being a complete idiot, takes his mom's credit card and a backpack with some supplies and sets off. So he starts leaving town along with a bunch of other kids. And in this crowd, we see Jet, Rose, and Bart above them in a blimp.
In a blimp.
Like a Hindenburg-looking blimp. You know, this is a big thing.
Yeah.
But somehow the kids that are below them don't notice this massive blimp above them.
They're too busy. They're making their pilgrimage. I do like. I think it's very Children of the Corn-esque. That it's just like hundreds of children all walking in the same direction, just silently staring forward. And he's just like, what the fuck? And he looks up and there's a blimp of just people taking pictures and looking down at him with binoculars.
Yeah.
Like, look at these
This is where we get our introduction to Jet, Rose, and Bart. You know, we'll get their sort of idea, their situation, their relationships, and they're out to steal the Creatura, the kids' Creatura.
Yeah.
Stash is amongst the crowd, but he's kind of in the back, and he wants to test out his Creatura. And he releases a rack from his cube, and he realizes he won't listen to him because, you know, it's a rock. It's an inanimate object. Thinking this is in relation to a lesson from Dr. Birch, he continues training with a rock, but the rock stumbles down the cliff, and the pair tumble into Block, who's flirting with Nancy Hart. So, like, they're falling down the cliff, and then we'll cut to Block flirting with Nancy Hart, and he's like, you know, he's finally gonna, you know, he just hit her with, like, a pickup line. He's like,
it was real smooth.
And before she could turn around to respond to him, because she's looking the other way at making sure, like, you know, the kids get through the forest all fine. Just as she turns around, and they're on, like, a bit of a hillside here.
Yeah.
And as soon as she turns around, that's when he gets nailed by the rock and Stash Mustard, who are falling down the cliff. And when she turns around, he's no longer there. And she's like, Block? Where'd you go? And, like, and we'll cut back to them falling down the cliff, all three of them now.
All three of them. One of them's a rock.
One of them's a rock, yes. So Block, you know, is swept down the hill with a tumble at the bottom. They hit May. May Steve, who is also upset, and it's upset that the guy that hit her is also the guy who stole her Creatura the other day.
Yeah. Her fish type.
Block, being a bit older and just, you know, thinks that his chance with Nancy Hart was just sabotage, demands to battle. And so Block challenges Stash Mustard to a battle. Stash Mustard throws out a rock, and Block throws out a dancer Creatura. Kind of looks like a ballerina, but like fluffy.
Yeah.
Like a sheep.
Yeah. A kind of creepy, gross, you know, feminine-looking Creatura.
Yeah. And
Gross.
Block, you know, he's like, you know, dancer, do this move. And it runs at the rock. You know, it looks like this epic thing. Looks like this fucking rock is about to get obliterated. And the dancer fucking kicks the rock and breaks his toes and falls down defeated.
Yeah. All right, good.
So Stash Mustard wins the fight. And Block says that since he won, Block will now has to be his mentor. And the logic doesn't really seem to make sense, but it's like a way that Block feels like he can save face, you know, because he's like, oh, like, you know, I didn't really lose to you. I just was testing you, and now I'm gonna be in charge of you. I'm gonna be your sensei. I'm gonna teach you the ways of the Creatura. And Stash, you know, he sees an older kid, and he's like, yeah, that sounds good. Yeah, Block's
he's
my master now.
My
sensei.
master. Yeah.
Yeah. May is the only one that clearly sees that Stash's Creatura is nothing but an actual rock, and won't shut up about it. But they kind of just ignore her, Like she's like yelling about like, that's not like a fight. Your dancer just like kicked a rock. Like that's all that is. And that she's saying this like behind them, but they're just not paying attention at all.
They're having a conversation. They're talking about how they're gonna trap them all and bring them all back to his house, and then maybe Dad will come
thinks that's
back.
a little weird, but but you know, maybe he'll turn around. He'll think like, oh, you know, if I could teach this kid, maybe Nancy will think that I'm, you know, responsible and I'm helping take care of this guy, and she takes care of people, so maybe she'll finally love me. Like, you know, he sees this as a way to get to the girl he's in love with.
Yeah.
And then their you know, their little talk gets interrupted when they hear a commotion, and they run to see a bunch of kids getting clearly gassed by this blimp, and their Creatura are being stolen. And walking through the crowd is Jet, Rose, and Bart, who all have gas masks on. And it's kind of implied from like what's happening to the kids that like this gas is not just knockout gas. Like
No,
these
they're
kids
dead.
are getting seriously injured. Maybe not dead, but like these kids are going to die if they keep getting gassed.
Yeah.
Like they're coughing up blood and vomiting, and it's also, we're gonna see like Jet and Rose like and Bart, like they didn't actually realize that the gas they had would do this. They thought it was knockout gas.
Yeah.
They're like, oh crap, we didn't realize the effect that knockout gas would have on like kids. And they're like, well, let's just grab the Creatura and get out of here. Like, we gotta go.
Maybe Jet's like, I was talking with Sergey, and he said that this would take care of all of our problems. How was I just supposed to know this is what he meant? Oh, Christ. Yeah. They've all got guns also, I assume. And they're just waving them around willy-nilly.
And Block immediately runs away. He's like, oh, I'll go find Nancy, and we'll get to this. I'll get Nancy. And so he runs away. Like, doesn't really give a shit about any of the kids they're helping out. He just wants to go see where his girl is.
Yeah.
Stash releases a rock to fight them off, which works out really well, obviously, because they can't destroy a rock. And they seemingly also don't realize that it's just a rock.
It's just a rock. It's just a rock.
Like, Rose is like, oh my god, what kind of rare Creatura is that? We've got to get it. I've never seen one like that. And meanwhile, May is the only one doing any actual work. She, like, finds a gas mask, and she goes around to the side of the blimp, and she, like, shuts off the gas and sets the blimp away, and Rose, Jet, and Bart have to, like, hop on before it can, you know, like, the blimp can get away. And
well, I was thinking
May gets rid of all, like, saves all the Creatura that they stole.
Maybe the blimp connects them to the, like, they're connected by hoses to the blimp, and that's what's pumping out the gas, so she...
Oh, so they get plucked up in the air.
Yeah, they get pulled away as the blimp flies off, and they're like, no, and then they smack into a pole and get knocked out, and they're like, ugh. And then the bulldog Creatura is just in, like a papoose, like one of those baby things that people wear, and it's just, like, freaking out. There's no idea what's going on.
And in this, it is like it's very much shown that no one thinks that May did what she did. Like, Stash thinks that they ran away because he was beating them in the fight. Jet, Rose, and Bart all think that, you know, that somehow Stash, you know, did this with his Creatura. Like, it has some sort of power to make the blimp get sent away. Like, everyone thinks that Stash did this, and Block gets back with Nancy, and they both congratulate Stash for doing all the hard work, and May is just, you know, absolutely upset about this. She's like, I did it! Oh, it was me! And they're like, oh, shut up. You know, like...
Shut up, May. You didn't do anything. You take your silly fish and go home. I've got the most powerful Creatura known to man. And he holds up a rock. Like in the sky.
Because it's just a rock.
It's just a rock. It's a rock. It's a stone. It's a mineral
or is
deposit. Who knows? Maybe it has lungs and nervous system. Who knows?
Well, one of the later reveals we'll get in the series, I didn't write the episode for it, but the reveal I want to do is that a rock is actually an egg, and that we'll have some fight where a rock will get hit, and it will crack open. They'll be like, oh my god, a rock's gonna die. And that's when a smooth rock ball comes out with big anime eyes.
Ooh.
This is animated, so it'll look, okay. It looks like just a rock.
No, I was just imagining like Mr. Krabs without his shell. That sort of thing. It's like all pink and slimy and gross and like veiny, and it's like, ugh.
I'm essentially just imagining like a smooth rock with googly eyes. Is kind of what it looks like.
Yeah.
And now, since the rock is out of its shell, they call it egg now. Because it's like, well, rock was actually just an egg. So instead of a rock, they call it egg.
Ooh.
That's its evolution.
That's
egg.
fun. Yeah.
Even though it was an egg beforehand, and now it's
now it's a rock. Stone.
Now it's a rock. So originally it was egg, and now it's a rock. But they're going from a rock to egg.
Here's how I thought it was gonna go. Was that Stash was going to like, throughout his battles, he was like not gonna keep losing, and then he realizes that he's like, this is not a what's it called when you work together with something?
Partnership?
Yeah, this is a partnership style Creatura, and he just uses it and like beats the animals with a rock. Yeah, he just smashes it, and then they turn into like big piles of like blood jelly, and he's like, I won! And you just see these kids just weeping because their Creatura has been
crying.
killed.
Their Creatura got brutalized. Yeah.
And everybody's like,
and after the battle's over, we see Nurse Happy like go into the battlefield and pick up the limbs, and like, this will be great for my project.
My secret projects, yes. Woohoo. Yeah.
Excited for that.
And then everybody like kind of slowly realizes that that Stash is like legitimately insane, but no one wants to talk to him about it because he's scary.
Mm-hmm.
Because he's beaten like 50 animals to death with that rock.
With a rock. As we go through the series, another reveal, like a subtle reveal to the audience, is that so Stash is going to be like calling back home to his mom and Dr. Birch, and over time we're going to slowly realize that Dr. Birch is clearly Stash's dad.
Yeah.
Like it's incredibly obvious that this guy is his father. He keeps calling him son every once in a while, and he's like, I know, I just mean that like the sort of it's a term of endearment.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's all it is.
In a paternal way, but not legally speaking, of course. There's no legal. We are not legally related in any way or shape or form. But I like you, kid. You've got moxie.
Yeah. They look very similar as well. Like it's gonna be. You're like, huh.
Maybe he's got like Stash has a very specific hairstyle, and we see Dr. Birch. He's got like a special hat on throughout the entire thing, like an aviator's cap, and then episode like 8 or whatever, he finally takes off the hat, and he's got the exact same hairstyle and color,
Another little thing is that the only person with a mustache in this entire universe is Dr. Birch.
Yeah, okay, good. That's good. I like that. I like it.
It's just Dr. Birch. Just a little, All right, so some other episode ideas I have is that we're gonna have a Creatura meth lab.
Oh.
So drugs are gonna be, how are we gonna have a Pokemon parody without
drugs? They use candies all the time. Whatever.
Yeah, so it's gonna be like, the candies or whatever in Pokemon that give like creatures buffs or whatever is gonna be drugs in this universe, like just straight cocaine and meth and whatever.
They're shooting them up like it's
before
we'll
fights
have like
and stuff.
A huge roided up Pokemon that's just like, hit me, come on, and they like stick it in his rear and like inject him with all sorts of steroids, and then he's lifting a weight type Pokemon, and you think it's just normal weights until it like gets up on its hind legs and like high fives the one that was lifting him. You get all sorts of stuff.
We have a scene where like Stash tries to juice up a rock, but he's a rock, so the needle just breaks. But he kind of thinks it worked. Yeah. And we'll have the games commission comes in and they're testing everyone for, they realize they've got a drug problem, like performance-enhancing drugs in the creature, and maybe this is his first tournament that Stash does, and he wins because every other creature gets disqualified. Yeah. Okay, good. And the only one that didn't get disqualified is the rock, because it's a rocket. Clearly, it can't do drugs. We should have another episode where he's in a tournament, but a rock gets stolen, and he refuses to come out of this tournament, because he's like, no, he'll be here for me. I know he cares for me, or whatever. And then we have the Team Rocket, and they're in their blimp. I assume the Hindenburg style blimp is going to be their like moving headquarters.
And they'd like go around it all the time, and so maybe they're above the tournament trying to like analyze Iraq, and then they get into a fight and Iraq gets knocked out of the blimp and it falls down just as Stash goes up, and the rock lands on the opposition's Creatura and just crushes it into a paste. And then he's like, "Yay! I knew!"
And he's cheering, and the little kid that had the other Creatura is just fucking bawling.
Yeah, because it's like so dead.
It's a flat creature now.
Yay! I knew you'd come back to me, Iraq. And he runs up and he gives it a big hug, and he gets covered in gore. I'm assuming that Stash is gonna get covered in gore quite often. Like when he sees the first, that first Creatura fight, and it's really, violent. We get a dog Creatura like ripping its head back and forth, and it's got another Creatura in its mouth, and it rips it, and like blood splatters all over Stash's face, and he's like, "Oh man,
yeah,
I wish I could be a part of that. This looks fun,"
We could have a Most Dangerous Game episode. So, like, Creatura and their pairs hunting each other in the woods,
Yeah.
This would be the great instance of Stash just beating creatures up with a rock.
With a rock.
This would be just fucking bashing their skulls in.
Yeah.
And it sort of implied afterwards that he wasn't supposed to do that. It was like he was supposed to just sort of knock him out. Like, but he's brutally killing every single one of these.
And maybe we can have him go a little native, and he builds like all sorts of traps and like spike pits and stuff like the Viet Cong, and he becomes like one with the forest, all this shit, and he's using a rock to like, he's cutting down a tree, but he's sharpening the rock's side, or all this stuff, and everyone's like, Jesus Christ, this kid's gone loony. It's like, nah, he was always like that. He's fucking nuts, this guy.
Another episode idea I have is so the sort of sleazy corporate world of Creatura fighting, involving like crazy contracts and the terrible lifestyles for masters in Creatura. Like it's very influencery. It's very someone signs their first contract. Stash really wants his contract. He wants to sign with one of the big Creatura fighting companies, and everyone in that world is stuck in their. They're stuck in their contract. They've got to fight all the time. Like, the creatures are exhausted. The owners are, completely, hopped up on drugs. But they're all, 10-year-old kids and, these little adorable, creatures. And, the 10-year-old kids are, hooked on drugs. And they're, alcoholics. And they smoke all the time. And, we have, an 11-year-old kid giving Stash advice. And he's, smoking a cigarette. It's really messed up.
I know. I remember when I was young like you.
Yeah, when I was just starting out.
Last year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Left my mama. Got into this world.
Oh, yeah, we could have, a cosmetic company, doing all sorts of experiments on the Creatura, but it's making them even cuter.
Oh, yeah.
So they're like...
Well, that's kind of what they want, probably, right?
Exactly, but where it's we're testing lipsticks, and the lipsticks burn humans because Creaturan, DNA is totally different than humans, but it's making them even more adorable, and it's putting these creatures in horrible pain, but it makes them... It's like those, teacup pigs or whatever, and it makes these animals, really, really adorable, and they become designer pets for the ultra wealthy. And they
what we could have here? We could have a a dog show episode.
Yes.
Or Creatura episode where they're showing off their creatures.
Yes, that would be good.
And a good way to end it would be at the final show. A rock has done terribly because it's just a rock, and he buys some of this lipstick to try to make it cuter because it makes every other creature cuter, and he puts it on and obviously just fucking marks it because it's a rock. It's just a little bit of red, a red smile that he just put on this rock. And they're at the stage, and the judges are giving their final sayings. They're talking about how shitty the rock is and how stupid it is that he entered it into the competition. It's the worst looking creature here, and that's when all the other creatures fucking just melt or explode or catch on fire or something because of the thing they used.
Exactly.
The lipstick.
And then
there's someone like the CEO of the company or whatever, like in the audience is like, all right, causes like, or like a scientist, causes
combustion. And we could have like the announcer be like, oh, with great dismay, we award the winning prize to Iraq. And then he goes into this like whole speech about how they can't abuse these animals for their own their purposes. We have to treat these creatures with respect and dignity that they deserve. So we will cancel all of the Creatura shows and go back to hosting only Creatura fights. And then it's just like cuts to, instead of them walking around, they're like ripping each other's throats out. And they're like, balance is restored.
Clearly, this is good entertainment, yes.
Now all these creatures live the way that they are meant to. In horrible violence and pain. Mm-hmm. But they're not pretty.
Not combusting spontaneously, just getting their throats ripped out.
Nope. I would like it if there's one kid, and he could be like a reoccurring background character. Like how in Pokemon Ash has his like arch enemy who shows up every few episodes. We have one
Professor Oak's son.
Other son, yeah.
Or cousin or uncle, nephew or something.
Nephew, exactly.
Nephew, that's what it is.
His evil brother, who doesn't have a mustache, but he has a goatee. Like, he has, like, the chin strap. He doesn't have a mustache.
And the kid's name is OT.
Haha, OT. OT mayonnaise. There you go.
Yep.
OT
mayo.
There you go. That's a great name.
That's a good name.
But instead of having just an inanimate object, he just has like a real animal, like a real world, like a chimp, and it just like rips the heads off of like the Creatura because it's a chimp.
Yeah, these adorable creatures.
Yeah, and it just like rips them in half and just starts eating them, like an actual chimp would do. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, I have to say, I like this show a lot. I'm not sure it would get picked up by anyone. We could talk.
Might get one episode, probably copyright violations at some point.
I think this show would be part of like a how occasionally Adult Swim will be like these are like 5 pilots that didn't get picked up, and then you watch the block that's all 5 pilots, and you're like, that was fun, but I get why it wasn't made into a full show. I think this would be part of that, but maybe we could talk to Game Freak. Maybe we could get them to make us a game.
Oh.
Yeah. Think about that.
An officially licensed Creatura game.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. You get, with real... It's the most immersive animal beating simulator you've ever seen.
Yeah.
PETA hates
Michael Vick would love this.
He loves it. He could be our celebrity endorsement.
Oh my god. Michael Vick should be in the show.
He should. He should be like...
we should have him at every single fight.
Maybe he's just like Stash's
Stash's biggest fan.
Or Stash is his biggest fan. Like Stash has like his posters of him in his room and all sorts of stuff. And then throughout the series, Michael Vick becomes Stash's biggest fan, and he's like going to all the games. He's got all the merch. He's got like a special hat that looks like Stash's hair. The whole thing.
Yeah, and he's got like a shirt that's like "I love Iraq."
I love Iraq. Woo. All right. Well, thank you for the show, and thank you everyone for listening to the Very Reasonable Pilots podcast. I've been your host, Charles Lung. With me has always been my co-host, editor, producer, co-pilot, gunner, navigator, orator, and podcasting associate, Jacob Cloth. If you like what you heard here and you want to hear more, please give us a like, a follow, subscribe, tell your friends, tell your family, tell your dog, tell your cat, and remember, we will be here next week with a brand new televisual series for you to enjoy. And
I'm actually off the top of our heads.
It will be, but I'm gonna tell you. My next... Are you sure? I thought this was 168.
This is 169.
Okay, all right. I'm going to assure you the next show that I pitch will actually be for children.
Oh, will it actually?
Yeah, it'll actually be like a kid's show. Not a parody of a kid's show. Not, I promise it's going to be a kid's show. It turns out to be a hyper-violent Western mystery thriller.
171. Look out for a kids show.
An actual kids show. It's gonna be great. I've already got some ideas in my head, turning around, making noise in there. You know how it is. Who?
Is it a cartoon?
Yes, it is a cartoon.
Yeah.
Maybe it could be like claymation. I love a claymation. You know me, stop motion.
Oh, the good old Wallace and Gromit.
Exactly, a Wallace and Gromit. All right.
Moon is made out of cheese, everyone.
It is. Blue cheese. All right. Thank you all for listening.
Yep. Goodbye.